The obsidian scales of the Drakthor circled overhead, their massive wings blotting out the twin suns of Kepler 442b. Lila Morgan stood in the center of the scorched landing zone, her small frame dwarfed by the crystalline spires that jutted from the alien soil like frozen lightning. She was 7 years old, wearing a torn colony jumpsuit, and she should have been terrified she wasn't. The largest of the dragons descended first, his landing shaking the ground with the force of a meteor strike. Jarun, the alpha of the Drakthor horde, stretched his serpentine neck forward, eyes like molten gold fixing upon the tiny human child. His breath came in waves of superheated air that would have incinerated most organic matter. Lila's hair danced in the thermal currents, but her skin remained unblistered. The other dragons landed in a tightening circle, 17 of the galaxy's most feared apex predators, each capable of razing cities with their plasma breath. They had hunted across 40 star systems, their reputation carved into the bones of dead civilizations. The Drakthor took what they wanted, and they had wanted this human colony's lithium reserves. Lila had been an afterthought, a curiosity plucked from the evacuation shuttle before it could escape orbit. "Why does the small flesh not flee?" hissed Cormac, his crimson scales reflecting the firelight from burning colony structures in the distance. Jarun tilted his massive head, studying the child with an intelligence that had orchestrated the downfall of empires. There was something wrong here, something his ancient instincts screamed at him to recognize. The child stood with her arms at her sides, head tilted back to meet his gaze without flinching. No prey behaved this way. No sentient being faced the Drakthor with such calm. "You are small," Jarun rumbled, his voice like tectonic plates grinding together. "Your people scatter like frightened insects. Yet you stand before the eternal flame itself without trembling." Lila smiled, a gentle expression that seemed impossibly serene given the circumstances. "My mama told me stories about dragons," she said, her voice clear despite the chaos around them. She said they were misunderstood. A ripple of confusion passed through the circle of predators. Several dragons exchanged glances, their telepathic network buzzing with uncertainty. Misunderstood? Jarun leaned closer, his fangs each longer than the child was tall. "We are death given form. We are the end of worlds. There is nothing to misunderstand." "You're afraid," Lila said simply. The words hung in the superheated air like a physical thing. Several dragons reared back, wings flaring in instinctive threat displays. Cormac released a gout of plasma that turned nearby sand to glass, but Lila didn't move. Jarun's eyes narrowed to slits. In his 3,000 years of existence, no creature had dared speak such words to him. He should have ended her existence with a thought, turned her to ash and scattered her atoms across the wasteland. But something held him back, something that whispered in the genetic memory of his species. A warning from an age before the Drakthor had taken to the stars. "Explain yourself, small flesh, before I show you the true meaning of fear." Lila took a step forward, closing the distance between herself and the Alpha's massive head. The movement was so unexpected, so contrary to every survival instinct, that Jarun actually pulled back slightly. "You take things from other people because you're scared you won't have enough," Lila continued, her small hand reaching out toward the dragon's snout. "You hurt others before they can hurt you. You make everyone afraid because you're afraid yourself." "We fear nothing," Cormac roared, but his protest sounded hollow even to his own ears. Lila's fingertips touched the obsidian scales of Jarun's nose, and the universe held its breath. The alpha dragon's pupils dilated, his massive body going rigid as something impossible occurred. Through the simple contact, through the fearless touch of an innocent, Jarun felt it, the thing he had sensed but not understood. It wasn't power in the traditional sense, not strength or energy or any force that could be weaponized. It was potential, humanity's potential. In that moment, Jarun saw what the Drakthor had missed in their arrogant assessment of this new species. He saw a race that had clawed its way up from primordial ooze without claws or fangs, without plasma breath or armored scales. He saw beings who had conquered their own world, not through force but through cooperation, innovation, and something the Drakthor had long forgotten: compassion. He saw a species that sent children into space with hope instead of weapons, that faced the infinite darkness with curiosity instead of conquest. And he saw what they would become given time. Not conquerors like the Drakthor, not fearful destroyers hoarding resources against an imagined scarcity. They would become something greater, The vision passed in a microsecond, but it aged Jarun in ways that centuries of warfare never had. He pulled back from Lila's touch, his golden eyes wide with something that might have been recognition or might have been fear. "The ancient texts," he whispered, his voice carrying to every dragon in the circle. "The builders, the first ones who seeded the galaxy with life before they ascended. They spoke of a species that would inherit what they left behind. A species without natural weapons, vulnerable and soft, but possessing something we lost millennia ago." "Alpha, what are you saying?" Cormac demanded. Jarun lowered himself to the ground, bringing his head level with Lila Morgan's. The gesture was one of submission, something no Drakthor had displayed in recorded history. "This child shows us what we have become," he said quietly. "We are living fossils, clinging to old ways of dominance and fear. But humanity, they are the future the builders envisioned, not because they are strong, but because they are brave enough to be kind in an unkind universe." Lila smiled again and patted the dragon's snout like he was an oversized pet. "Does this mean you'll help us rebuild our colony?" The absurdity of the question, a child asking the galaxy's most feared predators for construction assistance, should have been laughable. Instead, Jarun found himself nodding slowly. "Yes, small flesh Lila Morgan, the Drakthor will help, and perhaps in doing so we will remember what we once were before fear made us monsters." As the twin suns set over Kepler 442b, 17 dragons worked alongside human colonists to repair what they had broken, and at the center of it all, a 7-year-old girl hummed a lullaby her mother had taught her, teaching ancient predators that sometimes the deadliest weapon in the universe is simple, fearless kindness. The galaxy would never be quite the same.